one of the crazy things that happened early on, we were doing some scouting that first day, and Ward, who's one of the cameramen, he's a little bit ahead of me. He's like, hey, Joel, man, come over here and tell me what you think this looks like. So I see these footsteps, and now the way this hill goes, it's so hilly over there. I mean, you're talking about mesas, and there's all kind of nooks and crannies and bushes and trees and everything else. So there's plenty of places to hide, right? You go down this hill area, there were these footsteps, and I'm not lying to you, and this is on the movie. They're changing into hoofed and dog prints.
Las distracciones y narrativas reinan este mundo tecnológico. Todos tienen una opinión de lo que es la verdad y lo que es mentira. ¿Quién controla el mundo? Los aliens son real. ¿Vivimos en un Matrix? Estas preguntas serán debatidas con José y Daniel G, explorando y descubriendo las verdades de nuestro mundo, nuestras creencias y nuestro reality. Welcome to Cultura Truth Project. Oh, yeah, dímelo, mi gente. Welcome back. Es otro episodio of Cultura Truth Project. Jose G, Daniel G aquí. Dímelo, mi gente. What's up?
What's going on, everybody? Que es la que hay? Todo el mundo entero. All my people from Canada, from South America, Mexico. We got our first Mexico listeners, guys. Woo! Welcome, Mexico. Man. Welcome. Man, it is amazing to be back, mi gente. Man, Jose, we got a crazy topic today. You got a guest today.
Oh, yeah. We're bringing out some more big guns here on the show, bro. So I'm really glad. I'm really glad to bring our guest today. We have Joel Thomas from Merkle Media. He did the documentary, part of the documentary of Expedition Dogman. So they were out in Kentucky, fucking hunting, cryptids and stuff like monsters, bro. So we're gonna be talking to an actual cryptid monster.
Bro, this
He's
dude's a hunter.
Yeah,
he's
dude.
He's a hunter, like in Supernatural. This dude's legit. He's
if this was a fictional movie, he was my favorite character of the movie.
If he was your favorite character of the movie, okay,
bro, absolutely,
dude.
Guys,
I'm just saying, before we bring him on, I need to ask you one question, Jose.
Dime.
Is the Dogman real?
I don't know, man. I don't know, but I saw some aerial footage that was pretty convincing. So I don't know, man. I don't know.
See.
But we have
all questions will be answered today on Cultura Truth Project.
Yeah, we got the expert on the topic today. But guys, as always, make sure you follow us on all of our social media. Síguenos on YouTube, Rumble, at Cultura Truth Project, Gonzalez Media TV, Facebook, and Instagram. And subscribe to the podcast on all major platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Leave us a 5-star review. Yes, sir. Lightweight. What you got there?
Baby. And, representing some DFW today, some Ronnie Coleman. Why not?
Oh, all right.
Lightweight, baby.
Yeah, you know what? Let's add in our third member. Let's add in Joel Thomas. Yeah.
Let me talk to you.
Hey, so tell us some facts about life, my friend. Tell us some facts about life.
Facts of life.
Joel, thanks for coming on to the show today, broski. We really appreciate you taking some time to come to Cultura Truth Project. Before we get started with everything and talking all the weird stuff that we're going to get into today, where can the people find you?
Easiest place to go is Linktree/Joel Thomas Media, and every single bit of social media you can get to from there. You can get to Merkle.media, where not only the Dogman film is streaming, which you can also catch on Amazon Prime, Tubi, any of the major platforms. But we also have our second documentary up there, The Shape of Shadows, which we went out to Skinwalker Ranch and we hunted down skinwalkers. That was our last one. We got a new film coming out in about 2 to 3 months, and we went out to Washington with Wes Germer from Sasquatch Chronicles, and we went hunting Bigfoot to where in the area that he had what they called the spider crawl Bigfoot that dropped down like a spider and crawled in front of his vehicle, which is a pretty wild story. So we went out there, had some really quick, crazy, wild stuff there. There's Expedition Dogman. That was our first film we did. We've already shot 4 films. We got another one we just shot 2 months ago. We've got a feature film coming out this summer called The Sasquologist. It's an indie film that's coming out under Merkel as well. So we got a lot of films coming out. I've got a new podcast on the way in the next month or so called Free the Rabbits. So keep your eye out for that. But the best way to check anything that I got coming out is to go to Linktree/Joel Thomas Media. Now, if you go to any platform and type in Joel Thomas Media, it'll pop up there too. So it's pretty much the same handle across the board anywhere you go. I'm also a musician, so I put out a lot of music as well. So you can go to any platform, Spotify, Apple, Tidal, any of the 30 to 40 that are out there globally. Just type in Joel Thomas and you'll find all of the music that I do there. I also do soundtracks to all the films too. So those are available for everyone.
We got quite the Renaissance man on board today, Danny.
Boom, boom. Let's do it.
I love it, bro. So, Joel, tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get started with your research and dive into all this cryptid research, right? You know, the Bigfoot, the Dogman, all these things, you know, Chupacabras here in Puerto Rico, you know, where it started. So, you know, tell us a little bit about your background and how this all started, bro.
Chupacabra, that's the one that's slept on, man. People are sleeping on Chupacabra these days.
Bro, the
I've been
Chupacabra's
pushing,
real, bro.
I've been pushing for us to go to South America, which we've been talking about. So there is some chatter about us getting down to South America hunting cryptids, because there's a lot of UFO activity down in South America, plus giant activity, Nephilim, everything's down there. So I'm pushing to get down there. We'll see how it goes over the next year. But yeah, I'd love to go hunt Chupacabra. I feel like it's the one that no one's talking about anymore. And ever since they came out and basically said it was a dog and it wasn't this crazy lab experiment, which most people were seeing early on, I think that's what I'd like to go look for. But as far as my background goes, really, this whole journey started with music. That's the wild thing about this whole thing. It didn't even start with cryptids. I've always had a deep interest in cryptids and just the truth in general, right? We know that the quote unquote powers that be keep a lot of secrets from us, don't tell us what's going on. And right. And I feel like that, you know, my family was always very open to that stuff. I remember being a kid and watching UFO documentaries and Bermuda Triangle documentaries when I was little, like
that was
7.
Us.
Yeah,
for sure. That was
and
us.
my parents encouraged it, you know, so and I grew up a good portion of my life in the North Georgia mountains. So I actually grew up on the side of a mountain, and it was nothing for me to walk out the front door and see a bear walk across the front door or see a vast amount of animal life. So there were always stories of Bigfoot and all kind of creatures in the Appalachian Mountains, because I was at the tail end of those. So never thought twice about it being real or not. I knew that it existed. I knew people, there's no way thousands upon thousands people are lying. I mean, I get it. There are people that lie about this stuff, but you can tell generally if somebody's genuinely telling you a story, or they feel fear for their life, that they saw something that was, you know, out of place. And then as I got older, obviously I really dug deep into, you know, what was going behind the scenes with the government and everything else, and how all this is connected when you've got, you know, cryptids, you know, what are they doing with these cryptids? Because I do feel like that the government has captured some. Maybe they're reverse engineering them. I think some of these cryptids that we're seeing now, especially the ones around military bases, may be lab created. So, and they could also be hosts for, we'll get there, Nephilim spirits as well. So we can get super crazy with that. But yeah, cryptids in general, I just always loved. Now, musically, I've been involved in music for well over 20 years. And, you know, I started out in hip hop, and I still do a lot of hip hop, but I also mix a lot of other styles, country and rock and everything else. Like, I feel like, you know, the way music's is pushed now, it's different than it used to be. You see a lot of guys that are doing one type of music, they'll jump over and do this type of music. I think more people are open to the fact that people can be in multiple genres and be just as talented as that. So I just do what I feel when it comes to music. Well, around 2020, we all know what happened there, and everybody was, you know, kind of picking sides or whatever else, or people were waking up or whatever you want to call it, right? And I was really going hard early 2021 with music that was representing the pushback on the system. And a producer of mine sent my music over to Tony Merkel, who is the founder of Merkel Media and the Confessionals podcast, which is one of the top podcasts in the world when it comes to cryptids and the paranormal. And he'll tell it better than me, but he was taking a crap, and he got this DM from my producer, and he saw it, and he gets stuff like that all the time. He's like, that's probably going to be some garbage. So he's like, you know, he's going to listen to it. We listened to the first song and loved it, ran down to his studio, listened to the rest of the album, reached out to me personally, asked me, could he start using some of my music in some of his production stuff with podcasts and everything. About 2 months later, he and I started talking on the phone. He flew, I flew out to Philly where he was originally, and I went in studio with him. I did a whole segment on my past. Now, my past is very crazy because, you know, I went through a phase of my life when I was chasing going down this music game of trying to become famous. I went down this whole path, a dark path, where, you know, I was trying to sell my soul. I became a Freemason. A lot of these things that I ended up doing along this path. But as I got older, obviously, you know, I made a decision, and I tell this, you know, on plenty of podcasts, but there was a crossroads, and I had an opportunity to either take care of my family or shun them and then go down this road to get what I wanted to get. But I had to sacrifice basically my family to do it. You know, I didn't think about it at the time that was the decision, but in retrospect, that's really what it was. And I chose my family, and I started coming down a different path. And Tony wanted me to come on his podcast and talk about that. He wanted to talk about, you know, where I came from, my past, and what brought me where I am now. And I did. He and I became really good friends. He calls me up one day on an off chance that maybe I would want to go hunt dogman in the woods of Kentucky. He had an original crew, and they just fell through. And he asked me, he's like, I don't know how you feel about cryptids, because he and I never talked about cryptids. I was like, look, man, like, I grew up in the mountains of Georgia. I'm all about it. And he's like, well, I just need to know, do you have artillery? I'm like, listen, brother, I don't talk about the deep state the way I do. If I don't have something, I've got a lot. So, you know, I told him, I was like, that's cool. You know, I'll definitely come out there. And we went on this journey, and it created this team that we are still together now. We've grown now. The media company's grown tremendously. We've got a guy that runs the film department. He was in Hollywood for 10, 15 years. He's running that now. And now the films are very coordinated when we go out there. That was very much, we just threw ourselves in the woods, and we wanted to see what happened with some cameras, and some crazy stuff happened. So every trip that we've been on, some really wild stuff has happened to where it's like, man, we went Shape of Shadows. And if you ever watch that documentary, and we do have the evidence on camera, I mean, there was a moment for an hour and a half, 25 UFOs lit up the sky, and we're doing crazy aerial displays over SkinWalker Ranch, and you know, I stuff I can't explain, man.
I do have one question.
Yeah, sure.
And this is coming from the Hispanic-based community. Why do white people love to chase cryptids? Like, as a Latino, I believe in it, right? Like, I believe it's real. I know that it's out there, and I'm all like, déjalo por allá, leave it over there. But then it's always my white brethren, the ones who will bail me out of jail, God forbid I do some sort of drug crime, are the ones that go, it's like, hey guys, let's go out here and let's go hunt a dog man. Let's find a skinwalker, you know? But, you know, I just want to know, like, what is it with the whites trying to find these weird things in the dark?
And just to be clear, we're not trying to make it about race here.
No, I mean, as you see my handle, I am a comedian. I have to ask these questions.
Espérate. From what I understand, Merkel's Puerto Rican, right?
He is Puerto Rican.
Merkel's Puerto Rican, so you can't be blaming,
yeah, but look at the face of Merkel Media. Look at the face of Merkel Media.
But I'm just saying, dude, un boricua se tiró para allá in the woods, so
Ese es un jíbaro,
can't
ese
be
es un
blaming
jíbaro.
white.
He's a
Anyway,
jíbaro. He's a jíbaro. It's fine.
Yeah, he is actually he's actually Puerto Rican. It comes up as a big joke though with all this stuff for sure. I mean,
No, I'm obviously joking. You know, it's
no,
one of those
absolutely,
things.
man,
I'm
absolutely.
obviously joking. No, but it's interesting. Like I think out of all the cryptid stuff, I think the one that I've fallen into the most is, you know, the whole missing 411 and Skinwalker connection. Out of all things, what's with, like, especially in the community, in the online community, what is the connection between like Skinwalkers and missing 411 and all that? Not necessarily in the same area, but a lot of people report like, hey, this guy was abducted by a Skinwalker, and just so happens to be another missing 411 case. What's with that?
Well, also the missing 411 is connected to Bigfoot big time. So Bigfoot is a huge part of the missing 411 as well. So we actually, this last documentary we went out and shot, there was a missing 411 case that's involved with it that
Wow.
we had no idea about. So it actually created the film itself. We went out there looking for Bigfoot, and this whole other thing happened while we were out there. And I won't tell anybody about it until the film comes out, and it's close, but it's absolutely insane what went on. And, you know, we can't explain it, but we know that when it comes to cryptids in these national parks, that this phenomena is happening a lot. And it's just being covered up as people go missing or people are running away from their families or whatever they make it up to be. But the issue is there are government activities going on in these national parks. When we went to go shoot Expedition Dogman, when I had this crazy experience where I saw a tree, and the best way I can describe it is I got a decent wingspan. I can't get my arms around this tree. It's that big. It was a thick tree. I saw it shake like this from the bottom of it in front of me with nothing around it. And we go up there. I mean, there's no logging equipment. There's nothing. I mean, this was 30 feet away from me. And for this to happen, it had to be some sort of phenomena. I'm not saying it's Bigfoot. I'm not saying what it was. I don't know, but I know it was something paranormal or at least cryptid. And these things are happening in these national parks where these governments have facilities. We know that the UN has facilities in these national parks. Matter of fact, there have been plenty of people that were going down this rabbit hole to 411, and they go in these national parks and they find these random parking lots in the middle of nowhere with these unmarked white vehicles. They're UN vehicles, and they don't have typical license plates. They're barcodes on the back. So, you know, what is going on in these national parks? Matter of fact, people don't know this. The UN actually owns the U.S. national parks. It's not the U.S. The U.S. doesn't own those. Yeah, and that's easy to look up. There was a whole bill that was passed, and I want to say it was the 70s. Don't quote me on it. It was the 60s or 70s when this happened. And the UN bought all this stuff up. So it's shocking to know that there is land in the U.S. that's not owned by the U.S. And these national parks have something going on in them. And when we were on that Dogman trip, after that crazy thing happened, there were government black helicopters that were flying over us multiple times throughout this trip, which was super weird right after that happened. So was it connected to what happened? I don't know, but they showed up afterwards multiple times, and that's kind of weird.
You know what's weird? That while I was watching the documentary and I saw that scene when you and the camera guy had noticed a movement of the trees that was beyond the first phase of trees. It was behind that, right? And then it cut to a shot of a text message of the aerial footage of all the trees kind of like moving sideways as if something was walking through those woods, right?
Right.
Then people, I've heard some accounts of Dogman kind of being like almost like a Bigfoot, but with a dog head, like to that proportion of gigantism, Nephilism, right? So Do you think that they might be related, like the Bigfoot and the Dogman? Like they're probably part of the same species, and at some point one evolved to that, and one evolved to something else, or are they completely different entities?
Well, that's a loaded question because I think that Bigfoot could be multiple things, and depending on what you run into. So we think that the area that we were in was highly paranormal, and we're thinking that it could be what they call the fae phenomena or fairy phenomena, where you have these entities, these elementals that are in this area that start messing with people. Now, they can also take the form of things to trick you. So if you've ever heard the stories of kids being lured out in the woods by some sort of little girl or some creature, that's what those would be. And we think it's possible that that's what was going on in this area, because that wasn't the only phenomena that we had happen over there. It was multiple things that happened. When we went out there about 2 a.m. and we were in the dark and we'd shut everything off in the middle of, the Daniel Boone National Forest, we heard something thumping loud, but circling us, and it circled all the way. But then above us, there was this tree line, like this canopy of trees that was above us, and it had been raining, and something hit it, and it just in one straight shot, water fell on our heads in the one straight line, and then it stopped. So something made it do that, which was really weird. So we think that was probably some of that type of phenomena, which we've had happen on these trips. But if you've ever heard of stories of Bigfoot, a lot of times he's seen with orbs around him or UFOs with him. It's not always the same thing. Sometimes people see Bigfoot changing into something else, which that could also be fae phenomena. But then you got the possibility that Bigfoot's flesh and blood, which I think those exist too. Then you've got a whole other thing where it's an interdimensional being that can move in and out of time and consciousness. So I don't think it's necessarily one specific thing. I think depending on the situation that you're in, whatever that Bigfoot is, that's what he is. And it's hard to tell, because if he's doing things that are more flesh and blood, which people have said they've seen, you're probably dealing with something that's been here since the dawn of time. That's, a creature that was created or some sort of offshoot of something else. But if it's something that's changing and moving into something else, you're probably dealing with at least something interdimensional, if not fairies.
Now,
That's crazy.
a lot of pop culture has touched on this fae phenomenon, right? Like, a great example is the show True Blood. They touch a lot on the fae phenomenon, and so does shows like Supernatural. Now, where does this fae phenomenon come from? Because I know that where we come from, the whole fairy thing is not a real thing, but we believe in the other world, we believe in the demonic, we believe in the other spirits that exist. But where's this fae phenomenon come from?
So I love the Nephilim roads. Like, I go down this whole road of the Nephilim, and if people don't know what the Nephilim are, it was, in a nutshell, in Genesis 4, the fallen angels, the 1/3 that left heaven with Lucifer, Hillel, Abaddon, whatever you want to call him. They came down to what most people think was Mount Hermon, had sexual relations with human women, and created the Nephilim, which are the giants, the men of renown. Now, they also disrupted creation, because before the flood, their whole purpose was to disrupt everything that God created. So whether it was DNA manipulation, however you want to say, or they were actually having sex with these things, because even in the book of Jasher and the book of Jubilees, it talks about how they were even disrupting the plant life. So we don't know if that was necessary. I mean, I doubt they were having intercourse with plants. I mean, I'm thinking more of DNA manipulation, science, right? If you put it in scientific terms, some sort of DNA splicing they were doing to corrupt creation. But it was said that they were having sex with animals too. So when you're talking about cryptids, some people think that some of these cryptids came from the very similar thing that happened when the giants were created. They were just having sex with animals, and also created these hybrids, these fallen angel animal hybrids. Now, as they're creating these different lines, they are saying that what I've read, that the fairy bloodlines were a part of what they call these Nephilim bloodlines. There's supposed to be two bloodlines. You've got the dragon bloodline, which they say that the Antichrist is going to come from. And then you've got what they call the fairy bloodlines, or the matriarchal bloodlines. And it's a whole different bloodline. This is where your reptilians come from. This is where fairies, trolls, all of these things that we see throughout mythology, this is where this is supposed to come from. Now, these elemental spirits that you were just talking about, you were asking about the fairies, this is more than likely when those died out and those spirits didn't have anywhere to go. Those are those spirits that are antagonizing us, attacking us in the woods. Or they could be fallen entities. That's a possibility too. They could just be shape-shifting and, you know, messing with people as well. It's a tough one to nail down, but at least in a little bit of a nutshell there's some of the theorizing that's going on about what these fairies are.
Now, when you break it down like that, that just opens up like a whole nother avenue of questioning. We could probably get into a whole nother topic of a podcast, but kind of going into that rabbit hole of interdimensionality with the cryptids, right? Do you, in your opinion, and with your research, and you've hunted these things, you've experienced the presence of it. You know, there was one scene in the documentary when you were with the cameraman. He was like, "Whoa, this feels heavy. Like, I've never felt anything like this before." What do you think that's attributed to? Do you think that there is some type of interdimensional portal, ley line, a thin area or veil within that area in Kentucky, or just other areas in general where these cryptids are seen? Or are they just like what you said, you know, grown U.S. laboratory that escaped and now they're here? So, like, in your opinion, like, where do you lean on?
All of it. So I honestly think it could be anything. Here's the thing. I never like to pigeonhole myself into saying that this is it, because what I really despise about a lot of what we call the quote unquote truther community is guys that think they have the truth. Oh, I've got the truth. Let me tell you what it is, because I've got the real truth. And if you don't think like I think, then you're wrong and you don't need to be listening to me. I hate that. To me, listen, guys, we're talking about mythical beings here. Like, at the end of the day, it's theorizing. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say exactly what it is now, but you're asking me. I do think it could be all right. But if I'm feeling heavy in that situation, which I was, and I didn't see anything there, I tend to think there was something spiritual that was involved with that. I think there could be a portal around there. There could be the veil was thinned in that area. Listen, we were in a national park. There's probably a lot of government activity trying to open portals or trying to do some of these things in that area that could also adversely affect the terrain around us and could cause that to happen too.
So it's crazy. Danny, what you think?
Excuse me. Man, honestly, it's hard to pin down, because I know, and Jose can tell you, it's like there's certain things just like I believe it's out there. Like, I know it's out there. Like, Jose and I grew up in Florida, the skunk ape, Florida version of Bigfoot. Have I seen it? No, but I could tell you one time after Hurricane Charlie, I saw this thing jump a freaking tree, and I was like 12, and I'm like, I don't know what that was. Could it have been the skunk ape? Possibly. Who knows? But I'll say this, man, it's weird, because the whole idea of cryptids, and I go back to my point earlier, was the whole missing 411. There are people going missing, and there are these reports of, let it be Bigfoot, Skinwalker, Dogman, Mothman, whatever, label it X blank, right? Whatever that is, something is happening. And I feel like a lot of people in the community, not only in the truther community or whatever, like, I feel like a lot of people on the internet, something is going on. Do I know what it is? No. Could it be government related? Wouldn't be surprised. But at the same time, it's like people are missing. Kids are being, found days later with no harm to them, but clothes missing. Like, okay, what is this, pedophilia going on? Like, I don't know, but it's weird. So, I don't know, other than I'm open to the idea of anything is possible. But, when you said there's a matriarchal line of, Nephilim and they're called the fairies, and I'm like, over here, it's like, that makes sense why Hillary Clinton is the way that she is.
By the way, Hillary Clinton, back in the old WikiLeaks, man, she had a email that went out about them finding the tomb of Gilgamesh and a way to resurrect the Nephilim. So let's just put that out there. That was a proven fact that came from
That was
her
actually
email.
going to be my next topic. It's like we're in sync in here, Joel, because when I did research on the Nephilim and I just started going through this rabbit hole, obviously the Book of Enoch comes up, but then the Epic of Gilgamesh, right? And Gilgamesh, and one of the reasons, and a lot of theories, and people think that what happened during the Afghanistan war and all that situation back in the day was to get a hold of those ancient, either scriptures, statues, artifacts, whatever it was, because it was tied into, ancient civilization, pre-flood, pre-Younger Dryas, going back to Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh was apparently either a descendant of a Nephilim or a Nephilim himself, but there is some CIA emails reporting about, did you take care of that file of the Gilgamesh tomb or whatever? And I was like, okay, they know about Nephilim. They know about it.
So you're telling me, Jose, that the U.S. government is lying to us yet again?
What? No, never, bro.
Never. I mean, it was for WMDs, Jose. It was for WMDs, okay?
I trust the government. I can't even say that with a straight face. But, but Joel, man, so talk to me a little bit about this Epic of Gilgamesh and the whole theory with Hillary Clinton and the files and just the whole Nephilim situation out there in Afghanistan.
Yeah, so the funny thing about the whole Gilgamesh thing, and I know people talk about the Epic of Gilgamesh, but one of my favorite stories about Gilgamesh is from the Book of Giants, which is also paired with the Book of Enoch a lot. So if you ever buy the Book of Enoch or you download the PDF, you'll find this Book of Giants, which was these fragments that were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Really interesting book. It actually ties into a crazy theory I've been pushing around for the past year and a half of the good Nephilim, because I believe that there were Nephilim that turned to God and that actually helped David out when he was hunting down these Nephilim. And this is after the flood, actually. But Gilgamesh in the Book of Giants is one of the few giants that starts having dreams about the flood coming before it happens. So Mahaway actually goes to, and he's one of the other giants, he goes to Gilgamesh and they're having these dreams and they're trying to figure out what these dreams mean. So they know Enoch, he walks so closely with God that they can go to him. So they go to Enoch. Enoch's like, listen, let me go talk to God. I'll come back to you. He comes back with a couple tablets. He says, this tablet's for you. This tablet's for your fathers, which were the fallen angels. They get back. They actually read both tablets. And in doing that, one of the tablets says that they are indeed doomed. Well, the earth's doomed. But if they turn from their evil ways, then they can repent. So it actually starts what they call the giant wars, which are before this flood. So there's a group of giants that actually turn and say they don't want to do what they're doing anymore. And then there's other giants that resent them doing that. And it causes a big war. That's a whole other rabbit hole. But that is what I really like about Gilgamesh, because Gilgamesh is talked about having these pre-flood premonitions of what's going to happen before it happens.
That's funny, because isn't that like the War of the Titans before the Greek
Absolutely.
deals? Yeah,
absolutely.
That's interesting. It's funny because the whole, Joe Rogan, bless his heart, having all these archaeologists on his podcast in recent years, the whole Younger Dryas theory is it's opening up the Bible and a lot of these historical books into real like context. It's like, no, this place is here. This is here. This happened here. Now look, all these monsters, all these things were real at one point. And now we're sitting here having this conversation. And I'm just like, well, Jesus Christ is real. He's coming back soon, guys. I repent of all my sins and get ready, because he's about to knock the dough down.
And think about this, you're talking about Jesus. He talks about in the New Testament how, we need to be looking for the days of Noah. The days of Noah are coming back. So this is that pre-time before the flood. I believe technology was insane before the flood. I think that we know that there are pyramids hidden all over the world, at least hidden to us, right? We know that. We know there are pyramids in the Smoky Mountains. I mean, we're talking about all over Northern America, South America, everywhere. There's pyramids everywhere.
In Puerto Rico, bro.
Yeah, pyramids in Antarctica. We know that too. So,
oh no, we'll go down that rabbit hole in a different day. Keep going.
Yeah. So, all this technology before the flood, and maybe it was different technology, right? If we saw it, we'd probably think it was magic, right? It could be a way to unlock that other part of your brain. They say we only use 10% of our brains. I think that Adam's bloodline, I think that they could use all of their brains. So they, were able to talk to animals, maybe using telepathy. They could telekinesis, all these things to them were normal, right? That was just a normal way to wake up. To them, it wasn't something weird like it would be for us, right? I just think over time, and even now, when we talk about the food they feed us, the water that they give us to drink, all these things have dumbed down our brain to where we're not using that part of it. So I'd say before the flood, you've got probably what I would consider these good alchemists and these bad alchemists, which we know from the book of Enoch that the fallen entities, Azazel taught the sons of men or the men and the women alchemy. That was one of the things they taught them. It was a trade-off. They traded these women to the fallen entities to have giants. In return, they were given technology, they were given knowledge, they were given quote unquote magic, but corrupted magic at that, because they were just taking something that was already there, that was already being used, but it was used in a negative way. So now they're giving it to them in a negative way. And we're talking about the abilities that they had back then. I mean, we can even look to the Sutra Dhara, where the Sutra Dhara talks about how they were basically using mind bombs out in these deserts where they were dropping heat missiles, just using their minds in battle. So what you see in media when you're looking at Harry Potter and all these things, I just think that they're deriving from a place of truth at some point. And there may be people that can do that now that are in secret, but I would say at some point that was pretty common knowledge. And I think before the flood, it was. Now, I think we're moving in that direction again, but I think they're doing it a little differently. I think they're moving towards transhumanism. I think they're moving towards a way for us to evolve into the greater man by technology, or with taking something they give us. Like, hey, you take this will evolve your DNA into this. This will turn you into this. And I think the Nephilim will come back. I think, yes, I believe that there will be giants that'll be seen eventually, but I think the first Nephilim that they bring back is going to be a hybridized version that looks very much like us, but they're just going to have these abilities, and it's going to be showcased to us to say, hey, this is what you can evolve to. This is the evolution of man. This is where we can go to. Just take this, just quote unquote, sell your soul, and you can have this power. You can become a god too. Isn't that always been the trick? Is we can become God too if we do this. I mean, that's what happened in the Garden of Eden. You just eat this, you could become a god.
So on Nephilim coming back, did we get the first glimpse in Miami?
Here's what I think about the Miami thing. That's a really strange thing. We did a huge podcast, Juan Ayala, myself, Isaac Weishaupt, Tony Merkel, Justin from Cryptids of Corn. We sat down, broke it down for about an hour and a half about what we thought it could be. I tend to think that it's a possibility, but whatever happened in that mall was a product of a lot of this occult activity that goes on in that area. And I know Juan knows Florida really well, and he knows a lot of the occult activity that goes on, especially in that area. And he's like, man, it is a hotbed around there. He's like, you've got people doing rituals all over the place. He's like, that could have started up, but I do think the government was involved. I think they did it on purpose. And I think it was let's open this up. Let's see what happens. And then let's twist it and say it's this, right? So nobody believes it. So it was a really weird situation, because it was allowed to hit the undercurrents of social media really hard, and they didn't stop it. So they wanted it to get out that it was something weird, but then combat it and say that it wasn't on the outside. But dude, there's not 250 cop cars, 300 cop cars surrounding a mall for nothing, not for some kids fighting. And the videos, matter of fact, that were coming out of the kids fighting were days earlier, where it wasn't even the same day, which was super odd too.
Dude, like we grew up in Miami, so we know about the whole magical area. Growing up,
the Magic City.
We grew up around Santeria, bro. Well, I have an uncle who's a Santero, you know, that we, you know, and
we don't talk about him too much.
We don't talk about him, right?
We don't talk about him too much.
He did what they call el trabajo, right? They did the work, right? So, and you know, seeing all that stuff growing up, that's why I know about all this, right? So it doesn't really, it doesn't really surprise me that things like that happen in Miami, because if you go back, and we've said this on the podcast before, back in 2012 or 2011, when we had that whole guy situation eating a man's face off, you know, a lot of people were reporting it as, you know, there was a zombie virus and all these things about the, and it got contained. Apparently, it got escaped, but then they changed the narrative. Oh no, it was a guy that was high on bath salts and he overdosed. But you know,
it's my day job. I've seen some guys on bath salts that will eat a face. In their defense, I have seen that. I've seen some guys, some ladies on Klonopin that look like they will eat their face.
The group of people, bro.
I'm not trying to invalidate them. It's just anecdotal evidence on my end. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying what they're saying is untrue, but what I'm saying is there is a correlation. Correlation doesn't always equal causation, you know?
That's true. That's true. But I mean, you can't take away the fact that weird shit be happening in Florida, bro.
No. That's the reason I want to go back. I want to be part of the weird stuff that happens. This is 90% of the reason. Like, Texas is cool, don't get me wrong, but like, hey, who wouldn't rather be around a bunch of weirdos on the beach?
I love it. Joel, so while you were filming the documentary, the first one, Expedition Dogman, I know you were security detail, bro. I saw you with your rifles out, guns out, bro. You're in shape. Love it. But what are some things that were not caught on camera that you guys encountered that you might consider paranormal?
Well, there was a couple of odd things that happened, and this happened the day that we went back to pick up the trail cams, the last day. So before we left that day, we needed to leave that morning, hike back all the way in, get these trail cams, and come all the way back, because we wanted to see if the trail cams caught anything the night while we were gone. So this was the night that we stayed out to about 2-3 in the morning, and then we came back, got some rest, and went back out probably around, I don't know, 9-10 a.m. to go pick up these trail cameras. When that happened, Tony was taking one of the trail cameras off in one area by himself, and he let out a woo, like, what was that? And he said that he was looking through the tree line, and it looked like a gray furry head peeked out at him and looked at him. Now, where this log was, I said tree line. It was more like it was a fallen log. Where this log was, though, this thing would had to have been around the 7-foot range to be able to look over it like that at him. He caught it out of the corner of his eye and looked, and then it quickly went behind it. So that was really weird. None of the rest of us saw it, but he did. Now, I went back in there as soon as he said that to see what was going on. When I got back there, and you can't make this up, man. The only time on this trip, I left my phone back at the cabin. We'd already been out there for 4 days, 4 nights, and I'm exhausted. Leave my phone at the cabin. Can't take any pictures. I get back there, and there's the typical teepee structure that they say that Bigfoot build. It looks like, the best way I can describe it, there's one big tree, and then there were 2 logs that were positioned next to it, around it, and underneath it were a bunch of sticks and brush. So it was definitely at least man-made, right? But I'm saying for a man to pull big trees together and put them together on this other big tree, it would take more than one person. It wasn't just, one guy back there that created this. Now, I didn't smell anything that typically goes with, very much like that, but bigger. So I would say more, taller, bigger, just big logs. And underneath were all of these little sticks and all of these leaves and stuff. Now, I didn't see anything when I got back there. I didn't see Bigfoot. I didn't see anything like that. But it was odd that in the general area that he saw this thing, I go back there and there's this TP structure that is very much tied into what people say Bigfoot builds. Now, that could, at least in my mind, justify that maybe it was Bigfoot that shook that tree that day, because this is the same exact area. But that's not to say that there aren't multiple things going on in one area. So it could definitely have been some sort of spirit entity that was there that did that. It could be in conjunction with Bigfoot. I'll tell you this. I've heard some stories about Bigfoot. Bigfoot, sometimes he isn't feeling some of this stuff that's going on around him. I heard a story about a guy that said, you know, he was down in this cave and he was doing all this kundalini and all this stuff, trying to draw the stuff in, all this weird stuff in by himself in the middle of the woods, doing all the stuff. He has to take a piss, so he gets up out of this cave because it's down, so he has to climb up. He gets up, taking a piss, turns around. He's 2 feet looking at this hairy chest. I mean, it's right there behind him when he turns around. And he's like, I'm not going to look at it because this thing is an alpha. You know, you don't want to. And he's like, and this guy's a hippie too, man. Like, definitely a hippie. So he's like, hey, man, like, I'm not trying to hurt you, man.
I'm just trying to take a piss.
Right. So he puts his head
I
down.
just shit myself.
Right. Just like that. And he puts his head down and kind of moves away. Bigfoot doesn't do anything to him. And he goes back down in there. Now, there's a lot of UFO activity around that area. Matter of fact, we had some UFO activity happen when we went to that area. And this was a few months ago, about 3-4 months ago. My theory was he had liked what was going on. This is his like habitat. He's trying to relax. He's trying to chill. I think for the most part, unless you run across what they call the red-haired Bigfoot, which tend to be a little more violent, I think Bigfoot's just out there chilling, man. I think if we're talking about flesh and blood Bigfoot, I think he's relaxed. I think he's irritated at people that are trying to mess up his, I call him like the forest guardian, right? He's just out there chilling out. And here's this guy drawing all this negative, evil energy in his zone, man. He's like, that was more of a warning, I think, was like, look, man,
that makes
I can rip your arms off.
That makes perfect sense. He's like,
he sounded like a Miami Georgia. Like, listen, Papi, listen, I don't care what you do. Just don't do it around here. Vete para allá. I don't care. Listen, I'm just trying to stroke myself by myself without you looking, but
Bigfoot's just trying to get centered, trying to, activate his kundalini, open up his third eye, and then these fucking humans come over and just, his positive vibes and shit like that.
Right. And maybe that's
an idea I could totally get behind with. It's like, yeah, he's the guardian of the forest, and we're the ones he's attacking us because we're bothering him. Leave him alone.
And
he's the Shrek of the forest.
And there are numerous stories of people who live in the woods that see Bigfoot daily or see Bigfoot weekly, to where I don't mess with him, he doesn't mess with me. He allows me to see him. There was one lady that talked about she used to go down this creek and there was a family of them. It was a male, female, and then 2 children. And he said he would see them out there playing. At first they were a little weird and they would run off. And he said over time, over like a period of time, it just got to the point she could go down there. As long as she didn't cross the creek and get into their space, they allowed her to sit there and watch them play. And you hear stories about that a lot. Now, there are some pretty crazy stories of Bigfoot attacking people, but I think sometimes what's left out is maybe where they went or what they did when they were in that area. There's a story of one guy, he ripped up one of the teepees, and the guy went and ripped up his tent when he was gone. And it's like, of course, like, you ripped up his tent. Like, why wouldn't he do that?
Do you think that that Bigfoot is okay? So there's a couple different theories that I've found while scouring and doing research. One of them that they might be connected to the Nephilim. Another one is they're direct descendants of the Neanderthal. So because of the features that have been described out of all of these sightings, I can see how they can be descendants of a Neanderthal. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think some people talk about their descendants of Gigantopithecus. That's probably the one that they go to the most, right? That's supposed to be one of the biggest apes ever in the history of any kind of, bone structures we found. If we're talking flesh and blood, I think Bigfoot was created a long time ago. We're talking ancient Earth, and I think before Adam, like before all that. I think we're talking like pre-Adamic times. I think there's they're like the oldest, some of the oldest that have been around, and their tribes have passed down this information forever. That's why they're so good at hiding. Not only the fact that you've got some guys out there that talk about that they have quantum physics involved with what they can do, so they can move in and out. That's why they disappear when they do. They can move in and out of space and time, and appear in another zone. Maybe they have a different construct of their DNA that they understand, and maybe it's adaptively evolved over time into something else. So I don't know that. It's not a bad theory at all. I think if we're talking about flesh and blood, I think we're talking about something that's been around for a long, long time.
Man, imagine talking to Bigfoot and he goes, "Hey, my name is Giantfoot. I've been around, my daddy's been around forever. I don't really do podcasts like this, but for the first time I decided to come on Cultura Truth Project to talk about the truth about my kind. We're a quiet people. Just don't do yoga in front of my cave."
Bigfoot, are you a Christian? Do you believe in God?
Look, there is a God. I know him as Yahweh, but back in the day, before he created your daddy, Adam, he was just my friend. He was just my friend.
I like it. I'm down with that thought pattern all day. For sure. And you're talking about Bigfoot talking, people say they've talked to Bigfoot, or Bigfoot lures them into spaces where there are other Bigfoot. They call it mind speak. So some of these guys that have hunted Bigfoot a long time, they'll hear them in their head. So it's more of like a telepathy type of thing, where it's mind speak. Yeah. So again, you're talking about, something evolving. Maybe that's something evolved over time, or maybe it's something they just had from the get-go, and that's how they talk. We definitely I've heard specifically what you would consider Bigfoot whoops that are in the woods around us. So I know that. I know that I felt a Bigfoot, what I think was a Bigfoot growl, because my entire body vibrated and it felt so close to me, but it wasn't. And I've never felt anything like that where I could actually say I didn't hear it. I felt it. I felt the growl. I've never literally felt my insides vibrating, which is insane.
Now question. If you see him, if you let's say you go back out there to somewhere in the middle of Kentucky or Oregon or wherever the hell you find these guys at, and you actually meet one, what is the first question you would ask?
Well,
if he would let you ask.
I don't know, man. I ask, I just sit down and chill. Like I'm that guy on the crew. So the other guys are all about whipping guns out, man, and trying to get proof and take it back and, show people. I told Tony, I was like, look, man, I am perfectly fine with having my own experience with Bigfoot and nobody ever believing me. Like, I would be fine with that. I would be completely fine with seeing Bigfoot and interacting with Bigfoot on a visceral level and nobody else ever knowing. I'm okay with that. Like, I don't want to shoot him, not unless he's attacking me. Like, that's totally different. If something came out of the woods and was throwing stuff at me and acted a fool, like, yeah, you're gonna have to do something, man. You're not trying to die. But
my first question to Bigfoot would be, Bigfoot, before we get started, in all seriousness, do you acknowledge your tribal chief?
That's great.
He will do one of these, Jose. He will do one of these.
Yeah, the L. And then tuck it back in real quick.
Let's tuck that in real quick. There we go.
So
it's fun.
Go ahead, Danny. Go ahead.
No, it's fun. No, I think about it because there's so many stories of Bigfoot in the Native American lore, and he's been around, at least on this continent, for as long as we can remember. So if let's say he is a flesh and blood creature that is out there, and it is out there, I wouldn't be surprised if some Native American shaman just be like, dude, I talk to Bigfoot twice a week, man. Me and I are homies.
Absolutely.
I take some peyote, he takes some peyote too, and we interdimensionally communicate.
Peyote is probably like a Tylenol for him, bro.
Bro, I'm telling you.
Like in Thailand, it has to be like not that good. He probably needs to take like 10 peyotes in order to.
He takes the entire frog. Just
Oh, yeah. Just eat the entire frog, bro. Joel, let's talk about really quick your newest project, The Shape of Shadows. It's right now streaming, available on demand. Tell us about the project. We'll show the trailer really quick, and then we'll let you talk about it. All right?
Yeah.
Give me a second here. Here we go. Any day now. We're waiting on Billy.
Oh, this is live on the internet, everybody. We're going to edit we'll edit the part out. That's fine.
we are waiting on Vimeo. But this particular movie, it's about the skin crawlers, the skinwalkers, and you guys closed out the expedition Dogman leading into this one perfectly. Yeah. I absolutely loved it. So make sure you guys watch the documentary. I don't know why this is not loading. Let me. Oh,
there it goes. Oh, never mind.
No.
That internet connect, that Spectrum internet connection. Look at that.
Hey, I already know Spectrum's awful.
I
just had them out to fix the internet, and then they left, and then it was still the same. I'm like,
no, it's not even doing anything on my side. I don't know. Anyways, so talk to us a little bit about the movie and the project. How long did it take, and what kind of weird shit did you guys find over there without spoiling the movie too much?
Yeah, so it's funny the way that ended was totally unplanned on moving into the next film. We were already talking about going out to this place called Space Wolf Research. Now, Space Wolf Research is a ranch that butts up to the Skinwalker Ranch. So it's right there. You can walk up to the fence line, you can look over, and there's Skinwalker Ranch. So it goes down in the same valley in between the mesas. Where we camped was on top of a mesa, so we could look down into the valley and look up over to the other mesas. And we were already in talks of doing this. And Kyle, who was the guy that we built the entire Dogman saga around, who had his Dogman encounters, he actually reached out to one of the editors and said, man, it's really weird, but my son saw something in the window, and you know how the film ended with him seeing what looked to be a skinwalker, and his son knew enough about it, and he's like, it was a skinwalker, daddy. So that's how it ended, and we were already starting to work on this other skinwalker film. We're like, man, this is perfect. Like, you can't even end it any better going into another film.
No, it ended perfectly, dude. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, wow, that was well done.
Yeah, and it wasn't even planned. It just happened. Like, it was just one of those things where it just happened in a way that was really cool. Ryan Burns, who owns Space Wolf Research, had previously done an episode. There you go.
Yeah, we got it ready.
Okay. Yeah, you can go ahead if you want to.
Yeah, let me go ahead.
My grandfather, too, he would tell the same story. In that same area, there was a horseman. So there definitely is that creature out there. So they say these things can turn into wolves, they can turn into different creatures, cougars, whatever's available.
My name is Tony Merkel, host of the Confessionals podcast. I've interviewed over 500 witnesses to the strange and unexplained. Last year, I assembled a team of like-minded guys to come with me on a quest to document and even possibly experience some of these mysterious phenomena for ourselves. We started getting lights out here over the ridge.
Here they come again.
Here they come again.
Yeah. That gray container was right here.
Correct.
Look left. Yeah. Up there?
They'll come from the west. No, in the sky.
So it's old news.
It's old news, yeah.
This kind of stuff is connected in some way.
What if those guys, whoever was that, was a decoy?
God created everything, including these UFOs, including all those phenomena. God created it all.
Can't wait to watch it, man. Can't wait to watch it.
So I guess before you get into your story, I want you, for the listeners who don't know what a skinwalker is, what is a skinwalker?
In Native American folklore, it's basically a person who can change into another thing. another entity. It could be an animal. It's a multitude of things, right? It's not just one specific thing. Now, the really cool thing about this documentary, and we wanted to make sure that we did when we went out there, was show a lot of respect to the Native Americans there. And one thing I absolutely can't stand about a lot of the Skinwalker stuff that's put out there is they dismiss this giant piece of lore that's been there for hundreds and thousands of years, and they just go this scientific route. And if they do have Native Americans on, which is very slim to none, they almost make fun of it. Like it's a joke. It's not something that's real. Here's the best part, though. They're doing that for the camera. They absolutely believe what these Native Americans are saying behind the scenes. The government totally believes in the paranormal. There are stories of them reverse engineering the paranormal on Skinwalker Ranch. Why do you think this billionaire spent all this money to buy Skinwalker Ranch? And then, check this out, the government bought into it as well. So the government owns some of Skinwalker Ranch. That's an absolute fact. You can look that up. So that's not something that's not true. So if people want to know what's going on Skinwalker Ranch, you really won't know. What they're putting out on that show, surface level. They're not really telling you anything that's going on. And I can tell you, we saw some really wild stuff going on over there in that ranch. A lot of crazy light shows at night that are going on the ground. So we don't want to know what's going on as far as experiments. We know that there are tunnel systems that run underneath those mesas through where we're at, just from the locals that live there. Like, oh yeah, there's underwater or like underground systems, tunnel systems all through here. So what's really going on under the ground too in those specific areas? So we wanted to make sure that we showed a lot of reverence and respect to the people there, because we wanted to build our narrative around that, because that's exciting. Now, did we have a professor and a scientist on the show? Yeah, we did. We want to show some of that too, but we did want to go the route of let these Native Americans tell their story. Let them show us these areas where these things happen. And then let's see what happens when we get our boots on the ground out there. And that's what we built this entire narrative around. And it actually became one of the most compelling stories to us, because these people are the ones that live there. They're the ones that see this. They're the ones with all the legends. You know, matter of fact, you saw the young guy in the trailer, in his lineage, I don't remember how many far back, great, whatever, grandfather was a skinwalker. He was ahead of his tribe. And what he used to do to get past the enemy in Canada, he would turn into a fox or turn into an eagle or whatever and get past them, turn into that, and then go and talk to people from the other tribes so they could unite and figure out what they were going to do. Wow. So these are stories that come down all over the place. But listen, Skinwalkers aren't the only thing happening in Utah. I mean, they got what they call water babies that are there too. There's a host of things. Dogman. Matter of fact, the property that we're on, the original guy that sold the property to Ryan Burns, the reason why he sold it, he came out of his house one night and 3 dogmen jumped over the fence and came at him. These 7-8 foot dogmen. He started shooting at him. The bullets are going through him. It was definitely something metaphysical. It wasn't something physical. He literally sold the property the next day. He's like, he put it on the market the next day. He's like, I'm out of here. I'm not living here anymore. I'm out.
Unbelievable. That's crazy, dude.
I'm shocked. So now here's another great question that I think I don't mean it to be funny, but do you suspect any of the people that you interviewed might have been skinwalkers?
I don't think so. The only reason I say that is because they were very vehement in their faith, especially with God, and what they did to ward off these things. The older gentleman that you saw in that trailer, the guy with the hoodie in the beginning, Johnny, he would pray and light sage around wherever he was at, just to ward off whatever was going on. Now, one of the wildest things. So first, when we get there, and I'll break down some of the stories, some of the wild things that happened on the trip. One of the crazy things that happened early on, we were doing some scouting that first day, and Ward, who's one of the cameramen, he's a little bit ahead of me. He's like, hey, Joel, man, come over here and tell me what you think this looks like. So I see these footsteps, and now the way this hill goes, it's so hilly over there. I mean, you're talking about mesas, and there's all kind of nooks and crannies and bushes and trees and everything else. So there's plenty of places to hide, right? You go down this hill area, there were these footsteps, and I'm not lying to you, and this is on the movie. They're changing into hoofed and dog prints as they go down. They go from human to dog and hoofed prints. So I'm like, wait a minute. Like I go over there.
How do you process that?
I don't know how you process that, because okay, first off, you want to start, and I'm not good at this, but I try to reel myself back in and say, okay, what's the logical explanation here? Could somebody be putting a prank on us? You know what I mean? You start thinking about these things like before you get out there. Is this something that is possible? The only issue with somebody pulling a prank is there weren't any other footsteps around it. So it would have had to have been something moved in that area. So we took casts of them. We actually got casts of this stuff. It's insane. The ones that are really crazy are the ones that look like they're changing, where it looks like a foot is changing into something else. It's that in-between phase, right? Where that's the weird one. And then it's like, you see the footsteps and then you don't, like it just jumped. Like it went over into the other, like into Skinwalker Ranch. Cause right there was this fence line and right over it was Skinwalker Ranch. So we're looking at that and like, okay, let's bring some of the natives in and see what they think. Because at that point, we want to get natives, but we don't want to have them together either, so they're influencing each other. You just want somebody to have a cold look and say what they think immediately. So we have the older gentleman, Johnny, come look, and then we have the younger gentleman, Bo, Standing Rock. He comes and looks separately. Same thing almost immediately. The older gentleman, I mean, he's been around, man. He's traveled the world. This guy's seen it all, right? Everything. He walks down there and says, oh, these are Skinwalker prints. He's like, you can see right here. He's like, they're changing. And he's like, and then it's as soon as Bo comes down there, he's like, this looks like a Skinwalker changing. He's like, man, this is wild. So that's the first thing that happened when we got there. That was within a few hours of us getting to Utah. We see this happening and we're like, man, this is nuts. So then that night we are, it's starting to get dusk. And we're getting ready, to see what happens. We're going to start traipsing around the property. It's big property. So we see Tony and Ward come running up and like, man, we won't feel good. What we just ran into down there. We got to show you guys what we saw. And they take a picture of it before we go down there and take a look at it. And it was a ritualistic altar down there with like gifts given. It's on the video. We actually put it in the documentary. And it's odd. It's like little deer heads, and you've got all of these little objects that are being given. Very, very Native American, very ritualistic. They find this at that moment when they come up there and they show this to us. No lie. The entire sky lights up with 25 UFOs for like an hour and a half. And we're filming this and we're watching these UFOs do some of the most crazy aerial acrobatics we've ever seen for like an hour and a half right after we find this ritualistic circle. It's absolutely mind blowing. One of the craziest things I've ever had happen. And I say that after every trip because something absolutely insane happens every trip, just inevitably. And I don't know if it's that we're looking for it and it happens, but it always happens when we don't expect it. It's not when we're like really looking. It's like when our guards let down or when we're not as active, that something comes in and manipulates the matter around us. But that was nuts. And if you guys watch the documentary, you'll see this circle. I mean, it's insane. It's totally man-made for sure. Really weird though.
Now, what is something that happened during the filming that is not on the documentary that you can share with us? Because transforming footprints is creepy.
That's crazy.
An altar is creepy. UFOs is creepy. But what's something that happened that is just not going to make the cut or didn't make the cut that you saw personally or somebody else told you that you would like to share?
Yeah, so I don't mind at all. The film's been out for a little while, and I like talking about stuff that is like the director's cut stuff anyway that happens, because so much stuff happens and it doesn't make the the film because it's not good for film. Like, it's tough for me to put something in a film just talking about, I saw this, if you don't have any kind of video or something, you know what I mean? You gotta have something there. So the last night we were there and we went traipsing around in the dark, and we were way, way down below the mesa, you know, just all through these trees. Tony heard a small girl talking to him in the woods, like she was luring him into the woods right behind me. And he freaked out. He's like, man, it's almost like she was whispering in my ear, and then she was whispering in the woods. And it was basically, you know, come here. And he freaked out, man. He was like, man, I don't really want to be in this area anymore. Like, I'm out of here. I mean, all weird stuff's happening in that area, but that was one of the weird ones that happened that didn't make the cut because we weren't filming. We were walking through there, and I think the guys that had the camera were a little bit further down. It was really weird though. And we have stuff like that happen all the time on these trips where it sounds like something's talking to us. We see stuff, orbs or whatever, and it's just odd.
All right, Joe, let's switch over the conversation to wrestling, bro, because I know you're a wrestling fan. We're wrestling fans. We talk about it. We try to talk a little bit about it on each episode because this is not a wrestling podcast. But
well, no, it's also WrestleMania season. We have to cover the news.
Season, but
we do have to cover the news.
You know, but there's like a lot of things that I like to look in the grand scale of things, especially when I'm paying attention, especially to like WrestleMania season, and I look at the world events that are happening. And
right.
There's a lot of parallels that you see that are symbolic in WWE to the world events, right? So I like taking like Cody Rhodes as the symbolic representation of the United States, right? And then like Roman Reigns is like the biggest adversary that we have that's had the control and the power for the last 4 years. And that, so it's just the story I play in my mind.
Right.
But when I piece it together, it goes well, right? But now we have the addition of someone who's back. We have the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, The Rock. He's on the board of TKO. He's on TV regularly again. What are your thoughts on this main event, on the story itself, and The Rock coming back into the scene?
Well, I mean, it's gonna be must-see TV regardless if you're digging what The Rock's doing right now or not. I tend to like it. I mean, it's The Rock, man. You know, regardless of, and it's okay. Let me rewind it a little bit. I don't think that what their plan was and then what this turned into was the same thing. I don't think that this was a work from the beginning. That's just my personal opinion. If it is a work, man, I'll tell you what, Vince is dead and gone away from WWE, then that's for sure, because they really worked everybody to the core with this. If it's an absolute total work, I think that there was a plan in place for The Rock to go against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. I think people did get a little worked up, and I think they just kind of shifted it over. And The Rock's like, you know what? I'll play this heel Rock, which a lot of people are saying Hollywood Rock. I don't think it's Hollywood Rock. I think it's more like heel Rock from like the late 90s when it was like Versace Rock. You know what I mean? I think he's playing
Versace Rock is the best Rock. Come on,
the best Rock.
Absolutely.
I want that vest he's been wearing lately. I'm like, hey, that's fly.
Oh, it's great, man. I mean, and he's doing great work on the mic. I mean, he knows how to get everybody angry, but the best part is he's getting them so mad they're chanting his name because people love it. He's really just endearing them to him. I think that he's smart enough to know that what they were planning on wasn't going to work, and then they shifted in this Cody narrative. Now, I'm not throwing out the possibility that it wasn't work from the get-go. It could be at all a work, and if it is, hats off those guys for pulling that off, because what they've done is turn Cody into one of the biggest baby faces of all time. He's going to be the next John Cena, I think, for the next 8 years. I think you're going to see him in that role. They've been looking for that since John Cena started moving into Hollywood. They need a guy that's going to kiss the babies, go to all the Make-the-Wish foundations, take his belt off, give it to the kids when he's coming down there, going into the ring. They need that guy. I think that he's going to turn into that. And this is no better way to do it than this. Now, is he going to win at WrestleMania or not? That's a big question. I don't know, man. I mean, what, Hogan's record's that close? I mean, maybe I just think it would be an uproar with the fans if they did. I don't know if they're going to. I will say this though. I think Seth and Cody are going to lose night one. I think they will. I think they're going to stack all the chips against Cody Rhodes going into night two. I think
You have a
it's
bigger
gonna be
payoff. You have a bigger
way
payoff.
bigger payoff.
Yeah.
I think it could end up being absolute mayhem that next night. I think you may see a lot of the guys that the bloodline screwed over come out and start fighting with the bloodline too. I mean, it could be a full out brawl. I know Stone Cold's going to be in the building too, man. Maybe he comes out and hits The Rock with the stunner, just to get everybody hyped. I'm just throwing that out there, man. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but who knows? Who knows?
Question. Because here's to me, it's like the one character in the WWE that like got lost, and you're wearing his vest, LA Knight. He had his moment. And then it's like he flash in a pan, boom, gone.
I don't think so.
No, but like for the main event picture, as of right now,
he's still there. I think he's still there. I listen. His merch is selling out of this world still. What's nuts is I follow a lot of stuff online. People are still clamoring, man. They still want him in that picture. I think this is what happened. He took off at a time they didn't have a plan for him. Like there's no plan for this guy. I think what they promised him is this year, I think he's going to move into that because they've had plenty of opportunities to give him the US title or give him the Intercontinental if they wanted to. They could have gone that route with the whole Gunther thing. I think they gave him the AJ thing. He's going to beat AJ. We know that's going to happen. They gave him the AJ thing to give him a high-profile win again on WrestleMania. Maybe they make it no disqualification, just start beating each other up with kendo sticks or something like that. That would be cool. I think this year, though, he may end up with a feud with Drew McIntyre when Drew's got the belt. I think they've been kind of setting the seeds there with him and Drew. They've got some good interactions on the mic. I think Drew's beaten Seth for sure. Now, does Priest cash in on him? I don't know, but I think that Drew's gonna have the belt. I think Drew's a phenomenal heel. I think he's done some of the best work I've ever seen him do. I don't think LA Knight's dead and gone at all. I think they are moving him into position. I think if he'll have some belt this year, I think that's just inevitable.
By the way, check out this is an interview I did with LA Knight back in like 2017 at a local show here in Orlando. The audio's terrible. I'm not really gonna play it, but he was the main event against Carlitos. So LA Knight and I go way back. So I love that guy.
Yeah.
All right. So Joel, bro, I want to first thank you so much for coming on to the show, man. It was awesome just learning about Dogman and the cryptids and what you do, bro. We definitely got to have you back on the show.
Absolutely. You guys are great.
But guys, make sure you follow us on all of our social media, on YouTube, on Rumble, at Cultura Truth Project. También make sure you follow us on Gonzalez Media TV on Facebook, Instagram, at Gonzalez Media TV. Subscribe to the podcast on major platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, and leave us a 5-star review. Follow Joel Thomas at Joel Thomas Media and catch him every single. Are you guys on every week on the Confessionals? Is that every week?
No, I just happen to be a lot lately. I've been out to a lot.
Well, make sure you subscribe to the Confessionals podcast on YouTube or on all podcast platforms. So that's pretty much it. We thank you so much, Joel. It's been awesome, broski. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, everybody. Jose, another great one.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right. Y nos fuimos.